What I want people to understand is that, we have a beautiful country. We have a great leader right now in President Trump. We had to work hard. Everybody knows we had to work very hard to get him back into office. Every single American pulled together that made a difference. And we should feel good about what we were able to do because we defeated a coup attempt. And it's without doubt. So we defeated that. Trump was able to withstand the body blows when he was, president 45. And thank God that he had the wherewithal and the strength to say, once again, I'm going to put myself back into the fire, and I'm going to try, and I'm going to run again, and we won, right? And the American people, we should feel rightly, euphoric as you use that word. But here's where I'm at. Where I'm at is that this is a complete, we have to be disciplined. We have to understand that in order to maintain this beautiful country of ours, it's going to require sacrifice. And everybody needs to know that there's competing ideologies. Communism has always been at our front door. But now what we have is we have this Marxist ideology. When we say the left and the Democrats, it's Marxism, and it's Marxism inside of our government, principally inside of our government. We know that they're in the institutions of the country, education, and the corporate world with all this DEI stuff, which is another way to infiltrate into the culture that we have here, our culture of patriotism. So what I want people to know is that we all still have a responsibility, and I will go back to my sort of call, which is local action equals a national impact. So we are going to, we want Donald Trump to do all the things that he said he needs to do in order to get control of the executive branch of government. I do want him to really take a hard look at his authorities to be able to remove people that need to be removed and to be able to reduce the size of the executive branch. And that's what the whole DOGE thing is about. And we need to start to see some of that here in the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks, to see what kind of impact that's going to have. And frankly, that's accountability. I want, when I say I want, it's really in a collective sense, because I tell you, I get cards and letters every single day. And my going around this country over the last couple of weeks, what people want in this country is they want accountability of those who have committed these treasonous acts and tried to subvert our nation. And many of these people are still around. It's one thing to just say, suspend these clearances of these 51. It's actually 58. It's one thing to say that. Now what we have to do is we have to go after some of these people who continue to subvert this administration, because they're still involved in companies and activities, and they still have these networks inside of the government. Stay behind networks, infiltrators into the government to basically block and tackle. So strategically block and tackle and to undermine in this case, President Trump, and to do everything that they can. And these are trained activists inside of the government. They are now in government positions, so they're not in appointed positions where you can go in and just immediately remove them.
Hi, Steve here. It's difficult to provide an exact percentage about trust in traditional media, but it's been steadily declining, with a growing number of Americans turning to alternative and social media for news and information. This trend has been particularly notable in recent years, with events like the 2020 election and the COVID-19 pandemic leading many to question the narratives presented by establishment media. While specific numbers are hard to pin down, it's clear that a significant and increasing portion of the population is skeptical of mainstream media and prefers to seek out alternative sources. People are becoming increasingly aware of the information they're being fed, and many are starting to question the narrative presented by mainstream media. This shift in awareness is leading to a growing movement of individuals seeking out alternative sources of information, and it's changing the way we consume news and perceive the world around us. Mainstream media used to be the cornerstone of our society, providing news, entertainment, and information. However, in recent years, many have begun to criticize mainstream media for its role in disseminating misinformation, propaganda, and biased reporting. The lack of transparency and accountability within mainstream media has led to a decline in public trust, with many people feeling that the information they're being given is not entirely accurate or reliable. This erosion of trust has significant implications as people begin to seek out alternative sources of information that they feel are more trustworthy. Many mainstream media outlets are owned by large corporations, which can lead to a homogenization of viewpoints and a lack of diversity in reporting. This can result in a narrow, limited perspective being presented to the public rather than a balanced view of the issues. The influence of advertising revenue and sponsorship deals can also impact the type of content that's produced. The consequences of these issues are far-reaching, with many people feeling disillusioned and disconnected from the information they're being given. The rise of fake news and propaganda has become a major concern, with many outlets spreading misinformation and falsehoods to further their own agendas.
I am proud to launch USAID's first ever lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex inclusive development policy. The policy is a blueprint for USAID staff and partners around the world to champion LGBTQI+ inclusive development and the human rights of all LGBTQI+ people through our work.
Through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
As my colleague said, it's not only a gift to our adversaries, but trying to shut down the Agency for International Development by executive order is plain illegal.
I mean, my frustration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so.
We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like.
Let me get this straight. Fauci's NIAID and USAID sent over $40 million in U.S. taxpayer support to scientists in Wuhan who was working on bat coronavirus research, who also became patient zero for COVID-19, which they also then owned the vaccine patents for. Yeah, premeditated.
Ms. Powers, did USAID fund coronavirus research in Wuhan, China?
We did not fund gain-of-function research,
That's not the
as
question.
you know.
The question is, did you fund coronavirus research in Wuhan, China?
Before my time, there was the PREDICT program with which you're familiar, which ended in China in 2019.
Yeah, this is a $200 million program, and the GAO has also identified that some of these grants went directly to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where there is a suspicion that the lab leak began the pandemic. Has USAID awarded funds to the Academy of Military Medical Sciences in China?
Not to my knowledge, but I'd have to get
I think the answer is once again yes. GAO has found that there have been subawards of NIH money as probably as well as USAID money that went to the Academy of not just medical research, military medical research in China.
USAID is clearly in the job of trying to bring about regime change. It has secret bank accounts, shell companies.
USAID gets $50 billion a year in U.S. taxpayer money. That's a larger overt fund than the CIA has.
USAID perhaps is the new CIA.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably.
USAID is a key component of the U.S. government's regime change operations worldwide. USAID spends billions of dollars every year propping up NGOs overseas that function as shadow governments, eating away at elected governments that the U.S. interventionists want to overthrow. Behind most U.S. foreign policy disasters overseas, you will see the fingerprints of USAID. From Ukraine to Georgia and far beyond, USAID is meddling in the internal affairs of foreign countries, something that would infuriate Americans if it was happening to us.
The truth is, people are no longer sure what to believe and are increasingly turning to alternative sources of information to get a more accurate picture of what's going on in the world. As a result, mainstream media is facing a crisis of credibility, with many people questioning its role in a world where some leaders want total control over all information. The internet and social media have played a significant role in the rise of alternative media sources, allowing individuals to create and share their own content with a global audience. Citizen journalism has become a powerful force, with many independent reporters and bloggers providing in-depth investigative reporting on a range of issues. Social media platforms have also enabled people to connect with each other and share information, creating a sense of community and solidarity around alternative media sources. The impact of alternative media sources on public perception and awareness has been significant, with many people reporting that they feel more informed and engaged than ever before. Social media has enabled people to connect with others who share similar interests and views, creating a sense of belonging and community around alternative media sources. The rise of podcasts, YouTube channels, and independent news outlets has also provided people with a range of options for accessing information, allowing them to curate their own personalized news feed and seek out content that resonates the facts. Social media has also enabled people to connect with others who challenge their assumptions and broaden their horizons, creating a sense of diversity and inclusivity around alternative media sources. A significant event that symbolizes the shift away from mainstream media is the rapid growth of independent news outlets and alternative media sources. The rise of platforms like YouTube, X, and Facebook has enabled individuals to create and share their own content, reaching a global audience and providing a range of alternative perspectives. This has led to a situation where people are no longer reliant on mainstream media for their information and are instead seeking out independent sources that they feel are more trustworthy and reliable. The implications of this shift are significant, with many mainstream media outlets struggling to adapt to a changing media landscape. The viral spread of truth, revelations, and exposure of mainstream media scandals have also played a significant role in the shift away from mainstream media.
Today, staffers for the U.S. Agency for International Development, known as USAID, were told to stay out of the Washington, D.C. headquarters. USAID staffers said they tracked 600 employees who reported being locked out of the agency's computer systems overnight. USAID security chiefs were placed on leave after refusing to turn over classified material in restricted areas.
An unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government. Friday night, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, led by billionaire Elon Musk, gained access to the Treasury Department's entire system of payments, including Social Security and Medicare benefits and Americans' tax refunds.
What is USAID? When people hear the name USAID, they focus on aid. They focus on thinking like it's humanitarian work. But aid is not actually in the name of USAID. USAID stands for the United States Agency for International Development, not aid. It's not a charity. And international development is simply capacity building. It is local and regional capacity building done across the whole world, i.e. internationally. The primal id in USAID, international development, is about capacity building of assets that can be used by either the Pentagon, the State Department, or the CIA for their own activities. So if you're the Secretary of State and you were asked by the National Security Council or the President to do something in a different country, overthrow their government, how would you do that? And the first thing that I said is you would look at the assets that already exist in the country. Do we need new assets in addition to the ones that we currently have, or are the existing assets, can they achieve this simply by giving them enough money, giving them enough resources, giving them enough training, giving them enough support? One of the main ways that capacity building would be financed would be through USAID. USAID would say that it's doing something, funding a hospital system, funding universities, funding civil society organizations, funding media institutions, funding independent media in the region. Sorry, it's something in my eye. Independent media in the region on USAID payroll. And those institutions, those assets, would then be bigger and more powerful and more capable capacity, more capable of serving the State Department's goal, aka advancing U.S. national interests.
There are riots it's called the Maidan Rebellion in Ukraine, which we're not told that we are financing those riots. The newspapers never told us, our government never told us. USAID, which is a CIA front, put $5 billion into funding those riots. Those riots lead to a coup d'etat against the first democratically elected government of the Ukraine. It was a government that refused to choose sides and to say we're going to be on the side of the West. So we wanted them out. A month before that government is overthrown, Victoria Nuland, who's the part of the centerpiece of the neocon ideology and who is now a high-level official in the State Department, has a secret call with the U.S. ambassador, which is tape recorded and is now public, which anybody can go and look up, where she is picking the new cabinet for the Ukraine, which is a U.S. Western cabinet. So they're picking the new government a month before the old government is overthrown.
Is that how democracy? Is that democracy when Victoria Nuland picks her government?
In terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Many people have been shocked and outraged by the discovery of fake news, propaganda, and misinformation, leading to a decline in trust and a growing sense of disillusionment. The rise of whistleblowers and independent investigators has also helped to expose the truth, providing people with a more accurate picture of what's going on in the world. As a result, many people are seeking out alternative sources of information and are turning to independent media outlets and citizen journalists for their news and their analysis. The shift away from mainstream media is also reflected in the growing demand for transparency and accountability in journalism. Many people are calling for greater transparency in reporting with a focus on fact-based journalism and investigative reporting. This has led to a situation where people are able to access a range of different perspectives and viewpoints and are instead seeking out sources that they feel are trustworthy and reliable. After all, why watch mainstream media when all they're saying is the exact same thing? The shift away from mainstream media is because of the growing demand for transparency and accountability in journalism. Thanks for watching. If you've had a similar experience with mainstream media, be sure to share your story in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content on Think About It. Thanks for watching.